Bead Company, and today I get the pleasure of doing another one of our design contest winners from the 2017 Potomac Bead Company Challenge. This design was by Rita and it's called Danish Delight, and it features some of our exclusive beads, our Ava bead and our disc duo bead, and then some other beads along with it too. If you want to follow along and make this Danish Delight bracelet or earrings according to Rita's design, you can go below the video to the date stamp when the video was produced and hit the Show More button. That Show More button then will give links to all of the different products if you want to purchase them from us online. In addition to that little date stamp and the Show More there's also a little eye in the corner. You can click on that and it will give you information as well. The information is from us, the video creators, and it's links to the different products and more information for you. Again, Rita's design here was one of the challenge winners for the 2017 contest, and it features the Ava bead and the disc duo bead that are Potomac Bead Company exclusives. In the Ava bead, we'll be using the metallic sun color, which is a bright, almost chartreuse green. In addition to the Ava bead, we'll be using disc duos, and I'm using the vintage copper disc duo color. The disc duos are featured in the middle here of that kind of Danishy look, as well as in the middle of the Ava bead as a connector bead between the components. The components you can also make as earrings if you would like, and connect them kind of to an ear wire at the top, and I'll go over that while we're doing the project. In addition to the disc duo and the Ava beads, we'll be using half tila beads, which I'm using the matted metallic copper in that half tila. You use 6 per component, and if you are doing an earring, you'll use 6 per component and 1 of your Avas, so you'll need 12 of both the half tilas and 4 of the Avas and the disc duos. In addition to the half tilas, there's also Nib-Bits, which may be a newer bead for you as well. They're like a slice of pie with 2 holes that are bigger at one side and smaller at the other side. The Nib-Bits I'll be featuring are the dark green metallic suede. Again, just like the half tilas, there are 6 per component. For a bracelet, you're looking at about 5 components depending on your size of your wrist, so you're just going to multiply those numbers. The components then, as they work their way out, are separated by some Swarovski crystals, and these are 4mm bicones. Any 4mm bead will do. I'm using the olivine color in the 4mm. Again, 4 per component. If you're doing earrings, you'll take out one of the Ava beads here and you'll use a 5th crystal there at the bottom. The whole thing then is going to be kind of sewn together with 11 O's and 15 O's. I'm using the Miyuki brand seed beads, and we're using the silver-lined chartreuse AB for my 11O to kind of match that metallic sun, and then the 15O is going to be transparent topaz AB, which will bring out a little bit of that metallic copper bronze in the half tilas. To hold the clasp, or to hold the bracelet together, I'll be using a cup button as a clasp, and this is a full apricot cup button. And then I'll be stringing on some Wildfire beading thread. Because of the colors, you can use either green, or I have gray handy, so I'm going to use the gray Wildfire in 0.006. You're going to use about 5 feet of that thread. That thread will be put on a size 12 beading needle. Just 1 needle will do. And you'll want a thread burner in order to burn the thread off the spool, as well as burn the ends of the thread as you complete the project. Because I use a thread burner, I like to have a needle nose pliers handy to flatten out the end of the thread to make it easier to thread the needle. Without further ado, we're going to go ahead and create the bracelet here, and I'll be linking on to this little section that I started as a nice piece to check out kind of Rita's design and go from there. In addition to the bracelet, like I said, I'll go over how to make a pair of earrings. So if you would like to make matching earrings or just do earrings, also have some ear wires available for you. To start out, go ahead and get 5 feet of beading thread onto your size 12 needle and make little piles of all of your beads. So to get started with the design, I am going to create a stop bead. A stop bead is a bead that will come off the project eventually, and I want to leave about 10 inches at the end of the stop bead. That's going to be because it is a 1 needle project. I'll go back and add my clasp and my button after the fact. So go ahead and leave yourself about 10 inches and take your needle through that bead, which will come off the project. So I use a bead that's not part of the project so I don't get them confused. and I make sure to leave myself about 10 inches. Take the thread through that bead 2 times, and then you'll have a long tail and kind of the stop of the project. The whole project, we're going to work our way from the outside to the inside and then progress to the next component and move along the design. To start, we are going to start by leaving that Ava kind of open here at the end, and that's where we will eventually put our button, is right at the end of one of the Ava beads. So to start, we're going to start with our 6 Nib-Bits and 2 Avas and our little half tilas. We're going to start with this outer edge and the outer row. If you want, you can decorate the outside of the crystals with seed beads. I added that onto the design. That wasn't part of Rita's original design, so you can keep it open, or you can add a little seed beads around the sides. To start, we're going to be picking up, like I said, that outer edge. What that means is we're going to be stringing through the wider part of the Nib-Bit. As we string through the wider part of the Nib-Bit, we're going to alternate with a Nib-Bit, a crystal, a Nib-Bit, a crystal, a Nib-Bit, and then halfway, after putting 2 crystals, put an Ava bead, another Nib-Bit, and the Ava bead, when you put it on, you want to make sure that you're putting it on through the actual top, that little V section, because we're putting on through the thick part of the Nib-Bit right now. Get on another one of your crystals, and then another Nib-Bit through again the thicker side, and another 4mm crystal, and another Nib-Bit. As I do that, the last thing I want to put on is my last Ava bead, again through the V, or the top hole of the Ava bead. I'm going to let these all get pushed down next to that stop bead. From here, take your thread and needle the whole way back around, starting at the stop bead, through the Nib-Bit, crystal, Nib-Bit, and give a nice tight pull. You can see that's going to be the outer edge of our design. To continue that outer edge and to get the design in place here with a little bit of the seed beads, once you're out that Nib-Bit above the crystal, add 5 15s onto your needle. If you don't want to do this, you're simply just going to ignore this part. I'm going to sew from one Nib-Bit to the other and through the Ava bead. Give a nice tight pull. After sewing through the Ava, I'm going to sew through the next Nib-Bit. Same hole, we're only going through that outer hole or the thicker area. Grab 5 more seed beads, skip over the crystal, and through the next Nib-Bit. This will also help to secure the crystal a little bit and to make that loop nice and tight. Again, coming out then after the Nib-Bit, we're going to add 5 seed beads. 5's the magic number. So every time you add 15s, just as a record, we're going to be adding them in groups of 5. Go through the Nib-Bit, the Ava, and the Nib-Bit, making sure that you're not going through that stop bead there. Give a tight little pull. And you can see our circle starting to happen. It's also going to start to force those Nib-Bits to sit with the smaller end or pie side in. I have 5 more of the 15s going on, and then I'm going to go through the Nib-Bit. I'm coming out in the original area now, so if you didn't want to decorate the outer edge with those 15s, here's where you would pick up and start with us again. I'm going to progress from the outer hole of the Nib-Bit to the inner hole of the Nib-Bit. To do so, I'm going to run the thread along the side of the Nib-Bit, backing the thread the opposite direction. It's going to expose a little bit of thread on the inside of the Nib-Bit, but as you continue, you won't see it. From here now, we're going to add in our half tila beads. The half tila beads, we're going to pick up a tila through either hole, doesn't matter, sew through a Nib-Bit. When we sew through the Nib-Bits, we're going to be sewing through that center or inner hole. From here, spin the whole way around, adding a half tila, and sewing through the open hole of the Nib-Bit. And I know the starter thread, or that stopping thread, because it's long, can kind of get in the way. Just push it out of the way. Add a half tila through the next Nib-Bit, and then a half tila, progressing the whole way around the circle here, adding them in. And as we add those in, then we will continue to build our inner line. So I'll have you go through and add. And it seems odd to skip over the ava because it kind of sits funky. Don't worry about that. We're going to pull it tighter. Adding my last half tila, I'm going to go through that center hole of the Nib-Bit and through the half tila, the first one that I put on, through that same hole. Give a nice tight pull, and then push those half tila beads kind of up. You can set it down if you need to, and we'll kind of raise those half tilas. Push those towards the outside, and then give one more tight pull, which is going to pull it and dome it just a tiny bit. From here, just like we did with the Nib-Bit, I want to progress from the outer hole to the inner hole. We're going to take the thread along the half tila that we're coming out of and reverse the thread so it's going in the opposite direction. Again, it'll stick a little bit of thread on the outside of that half tila. Give a nice tight pull. That's your opportunity to get rid of any extra thread that's showing. And now between each tila and that first hole of the tila, we are going to add an 11-0 seed bead. So you're going to pick up your chartreuse seed bead, add a seed bead, and sew through the tila. I'm not worrying about how tight I pull the thread currently because I will pull it tight at the end. Again, through the second hole of the half tila, the inner hole, and here. If you're doing earrings, you can also start on this intersection and work your way out. That's up to you. But to do the bracelet and to do it as a consecutive line rather than components that we have to piece together, I found it easier to do the outside in. After you add your last 11-0, we're going to sew through the first half tila, the first seed bead, and the second half tila, and bring my thread out. When you give a nice tight pull, it domes those half tilas upward, so they almost look like a little volcano or a little plateau. We're going to create the top of the plateau, or the top of that volcano, with our disc duo. When you're coming out the half tila here, you're going to add your disc duo, skip across, so there's 6 half tilas in, the 2 on the points where the avas are, and then the 2 across from there. We're going to be joining in to these 2 beads here. So I'm going to sew through and straight across through the half tila, the 11, and the half tila on the opposite side. That's going to pull the disc duo down towards the project. Coming out then that half tila, grab the other hole of the disc duo, sew through, and then after you sew through, go through that half tila 11, half tila on the opposite side. And that's going to hold that disc duo right in top in place there. From here, I want to get the disc duo to actually sit recessed a little bit. All you're going to do is with your fingers, turn the disc duo a little bit to the side before you pull the thread really tight. Pop it down inside that little volcano, and then pull the thread nice and tightly. And you can see then it'll just kind of sit there nicely right in the middle. From here, we get to add on to our component. Like I said, if you wanted to do an earring, instead of adding the second ava, you would have added another one of your crystals. At the top here, we're going to progress and basically work adding these together. Instead of adding them together and having to start over, we're going to progress and just keep going. To keep the flow going, you need to get from the inner hole here to the outer hole of the ava bead. To do so, go right to the half tila that's right above the point. Go through that inner hole, reverse through the second hole, exposing a little bit of thread on the side, and also going through that Nib-Bit. on the side of the Nib-Bit. We're going to go through the Nib-Bit and through that first hole of the Ava bead and come out. That will bring your thread out on the side of the Ava bead, and you're going to decorate again. 5 is the magic number. 5 15s get added onto the thread. I'm going to sew from the top hole to the first bottom leg hole of the Ava. Pick up another disc duo, sew through one hole of the disc duo, sew through the other leg of the Ava bead, and then as I sew through the other leg of the Ava bead, we're going to add the 5 15s as well. So I'm adding 1 2 3 4 5, again always 5s for the 15s, back through that top hole of the Ava, and we're going to spin around them, go through the 15s on the side, come out those 15s, so back through the bottom hole of the Ava and out the disc duo hole. As I'm out the disc duo hole, give a nice tight pull, kind of position your 15-0s against the Ava bead, and now again to step up or progress through the first hole of the disc duo, the thread's coming out, we're going to go through the second hole, exposing a little bit of thread on the side of the disc duo. From here, we just repeat exactly what we were doing with the components, except kind of in the reverse order, that we are going to start now with the Ava bead, going through the bottom leg of the Ava bead, through one of the inner holes there. When we come out the Ava bead, it's time to add our 15-0s. So we're going to add our 15-0s here, the 5 on the side, go through the top hole of the Ava bead and out. 5 more get added, and this is a good way to reinforce that link between the components. Go through the bottom hole, straight through the disc duo, through that bottom base original hole of the Ava bead that we went through the 15s down the side, and through the Ava bead. Now we are ready to start over. So we're going to start with that same progression that we're going to add the Nib-Bit, the 4mm, Nib-Bit, 4mm, Nib-Bit, another Ava bead. So we're just progressing in order to add the components on. So I'm going to go ahead and continue with the bracelet design, adding in a total of 5 of my components, and then we'll get ready to basically finish up, do the loops, and add on the clasp as well. If you do have multiple pieces, you can always use your thread to connect those pieces together in order to continue the design as well. So go ahead and continue building all of your little elements and progressing with your bracelet. So I'm to the end of the design, and again I have my 5 components. You can see it kind of there as a necklace as well, that it would look nice, and it does have enough turn to it that you can do the necklace. If you do want to do a longer necklace and have more links, just add a 15-0 in between the disc duo and the Ava beads, and that'll give you a little bit more room for it to curve. At the end here, it is going to be about a 7 1/4 inch bracelet with those 5 components. If you have a smaller wrist, like I do, you may want to actually stop one more component short. From here, we're going to do our loop for our cup button, and then on the other end, we'll add our cup button in. For the loop, we want to create a V. So I'm coming out my last disc duo, and you'll be getting ready to add that V by adding on 3 of your 15s, then 28 to 32 of your 11s. If you want to do a different type of clasp, you would do that at this point as well. You can also use all 15s and do about 35 of those if you wanted to use the 15 color instead. If you are using a different type of clasp, I would recommend using a wire guard before a push clasp or a lobster clasp or any sort of clasp like that. Also, if you do have a metal button, you may also want to use the wire guard or wire protector. After you have your seed beads on here, we are going to make our loop. To make the loop, I want you to go back through the first of the 11-0s that you added on, that is closest to the 15-0s, going with your needle towards the project. That's going to bring it down into a little bit of a Y there. add 3 more 15s, and we're going to reinforce this loop. Going back through the disc duo, giving a nice tight pull, and then taking my thread and needles up through the entire project and down. I'm going to do that 3 times, and then we'll tie off our thread. To tie off the thread now, I'm going to go down into my project. If you want, you can also use 15s here to decorate this side of the disc duo. That's up to you. I'm going to sew back through the project and get my thread and needle so it's coming out the back of one of my components. That way I can hide the end of the thread at the very back. Going through and retracing your steps, then you want to go back up through the clasp here. Come back down. And then as I get to the baseline there, I'm going to grab onto a bridge thread or a thread that connects the beads together. And from there, then I'll be able to tie a nice sewer's knot. So I'm going to take my needle behind the beads basically. So make a loop and sew through that loop 1 time and 2 times. And have a nice tight pull and make a nice knot. You can do that a couple different places that you want. If you want, drop a line of super new glue on there. And I am going to take my threads up then, heat it up, leave about 1/4 of an inch for this end thread because I can tuck it in the back, or 1/8 of an inch if you have it towards the front, and really burn down that thread, making it nice and flush against the Ava beads, and you will never even see it in there because the bracelet does have an arch to it, so it definitely has a top and a back. From here, it's time to go to the other end. On the other end, I have my stop bead, and I'm going to get ready to take off the stop bead, pulling that off, put a needle on this end, and then I'll add my disc duo in. And with the disc duo, I'll decorate the sides with the 4 seed beads, and then we'll get ready. Instead of doing our loop, I'll go ahead and I'll add in my button. So mimicking the other end here, I'll add my 3 15s, then I will add 3 11s, come up through the back of the cup button and out through the top. When I'm out at the top here, I'll add some of that green color in using 3 11s, come down the other side of the cup button, which will pull those 3 11s in, add 2 more 11s, and go back through that first 11 next to the 15s towards the project. That makes a little V, just like we did on the other side. Like on the other side too, we're going to add 3 more 15s, go through the disc duo, and reinforce this loop 3 times. After reinforcing the loop, we're going to go ahead and burn off the thread edges and do just like I did before, taking it to the back of the project. And once I'm towards the back of one of the components, that first component, I'll go ahead and burn down the end of that thread. So you can see I'm just retracing the steps on the thread lines, making sure this end is nice and secure. And I'll work it back down the project. Nice and in. Go underneath the bridge threads. Make that loop once, twice, and I'm going to make sure to really pull that needle and thread then towards the back before I pull nice and tightly on that loop. If you want to, you can go a little bit further into the project and sew off. Just making sure that wherever you go with your thread and needle, that it's along one of the thread lines or along the side of a bead. Here I have it then. I'm going to give myself 1/4 of an inch, burn down the edge of the thread. As you burn down the edge of the thread then, this Danish Delights bracelet is completed. So it's a great design. Thank you again to Rita for coming up with it. And again, if you need any of the materials to do this project, you can go back to the beginning of the video to the little date stamp or to me kind of pulling all the tubes over and listing them off. An idea again is to either let out the 15 O's here that kind of create that squared look. You can also create earrings by leaving out the bottom Ava and just connecting as if it were the end here to an ear wire and adding a crystal there at the bottom. In her design, Rita did have the pair of earrings along with the bracelet for her winning design. If you do like this video and regular updates, want to stay informed about contests, different projects that we have, different materials that we carry, you can always subscribe to this YouTube channel. You'll get regular updates then when we come up with new stuff for you and post new videos. You can also stay connected with us at PotomacBeads.com and shop from me online there, as well as join us by following us on Instagram and Facebook. You can join our Facebook group for beading and jewelry making. That is a members group. That is a wonderful area to get connected with other beaders, grab inspiration, comment on people's designs, and really get involved in the beading world. As always, everybody, thank you so much for watching. Thank you again to Rita for her winning design, and everybody enjoy making this fun Danish Delights bracelet.